Welcome. I'm Sue Landay. This is Show and Share. And today we have a very special guest, Angela Agresto, who also sometimes goes by Angie, I think, right? Is that okay to say?
Yes.
Um, and she has been in the training and leadership development area for over 15 years. She is a certified training from the back of the room um, trainer and provider. And we actually that was kind of the first thing that we bonded over because we too have I took the training from the back of the room course as well, and uh, she has created some amazing tools to kind of bring that whole approach and philosophy and make that a little bit easier. And she'll tell you a little bit more about this, but she on her website shares a lot of information kind of about an early childhood trauma she had. She's had a car accident, and she shares with such honesty and vulnerability that Angie, you're my new hero. And to make Angela feel welcome, how about if we all just take ourselves off of mute, and I'm going to stop your share for 1 second here. And just, I want on the count of three for everyone also, if you can put on your video for a minute, if you feel comfortable. And on the count of three, we're just going to say hello to Angie in whatever language you feel most comfortable with. You ready? One, two, three.
Hello.
Hello, Angie.
Bom dia,
Hello.
Gigi.
Hello. It's nice to meet all of you.
All right. So, Angela, get us started here. Give us a sense of your journey a little bit more and what brought you to create these tools.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. That was a really wonderful welcome. And I'm assuming you can see my screen again, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to share a little bit about part of my journey in connecting with these tools. Uh, so brain building blueprints really started in a very unexpected way. About 11 years ago, I was hit by a distracted driver while stopped at a red light in Fargo, North Dakota, and experienced a traumatic brain injury that completely transformed my understanding of how our brains process information. Suddenly, simple cognitive tasks became extremely overwhelming. While I've healed and overcome most of those issues, I discovered a concept called the energy pie, which actually demonstrates the limited cognitive resources that we all have. We just don't recognize them until we're actually fatigued. So, I'm giving you an example of a concept I learned when I was actually working with a cognitive therapist about what a healthy brain looks like and what a fatigued brain looks like. And what's interesting about this is the significant connection to the fatigued brain and the traditional training space. And when we understand that we actually have the opportunity to create these amazing classroom experiences and not fatigue the brain by using these simple and amazing tools and things like the 4Cs instructional design model that's taught in the training from the back of the room class, we have an amazing opportunity as trainers to create these amazing brain and sticky learning experiences. So I took this journey. I met Sharon Bowman in one of her training from the back of the room classes. And while I was there, I was really quickly noticing that I loved all of this information, but it was very overwhelming for me to take all of the concepts and all of the training techniques and put them together afterwards. I was spending hours digging through her books and trying to get this content together. So I drew a picture for her and I said, I think that we could put this together in a way that would be more user-friendly for trainers and educators. And she said, "Oh my God, that's brilliant. But honey, I'm retired." And she's like, "I don't want to write any more books, but I think you should do it." And so she gave me the invitation to create the brain building blueprints system that you guys are all going to be seeing and experiencing here today.
Okay, so our main focus is going to be on sharing this tool, but let's just take a quick couple of minutes, Angie, if you don't mind, to kind of, for folks who may not be familiar with the 4Cs model, to kind of bring together the brain science behind that model that makes it all make sense.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so let's explore some of the key concepts about how the brain learns. So, the human brain is fundamentally a pattern-seeking powerhouse. It's constantly looking for ways to organize information into meaningful chunks that are easier to remember and for us to be able to retrieve afterwards. When we use the 4Cs instructional design model, we're actually incorporating multisensory learning into our designs. C1 connection activities are connected directly to the amygdala. Emotions are the gatekeepers to learning. The amygdala is going to evaluate every piece of information for emotional relevance, and then it's going to determine what is going to be processed. And by using connection activities, it calms that emotional threat response down and allows the learner to feel safe and then open to learning. This C is actually the most important one of the entire model.
Which is really, critical because there are so many people who will say, "Oh, I don't like icebreakers. They're silly, they're a waste of time." And yet there's a real, cognitive learning, brain science reason why connections to each other and to the material are so critical.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point too, Sue, because there's a difference between a good connection activity and and an icebreaker that might make somebody feel uncomfortable.
All right. So number two.
Yes, C2 concepts are connected directly to the sensory cortex of the brain. These engage the learner's senses and boost memory through novelty, storytelling, and sensory inputs.
Okay.
C3 is the concrete practice. This is connected to the hippocampus. This is where new information is going to be encoded into our memory based on its relevance and repetition. That is why it is so important for us to actually have opportunities for them to do the thing that we're actually learning in the class. The last one is C4 conclusions. This one is connected to the prefrontal cortex. This is where executive functioning lives. And this is the part of the brain that is going to decide how we're going to use this information now and into the future, and if we will use the information we're getting.
Okay.
Now, if we want to simplify all of that stuff I just showed you on that brain and all of the parts of the brain into the really super simple nitty-gritty, you get the 4Cs brain-based instructional design model that you see right here. It provides simple but a powerful framework for creating effective learning experiences, and it will guide us through the four distinct phases, color-coded, and they align very naturally with how the brain processes and retains information. And that's where these concepts were, or these all of these concepts are kept in mind when we're looking at the brain building blueprints products.
Okay, so this is kind of like the outline, the big picture. It's actually part of one of your tools, right? But
Yes.
let's dive into the product. Can you just flip to your next slide? Because um, Angela's put together, first it was the book in that top left corner. And she's going to talk us through all of these, but we've got this flip book, which is a really amazing tool. And then we're going to talk about the card deck, which is similar but different. In the bottom middle, you see that very same kind of design framework, which is there. Um, and again, all of these tools are to make it easier for you to do your instructional design with the 4C framework and just make this super easy. So, Angela, let's I think you're going to talk about the book first. So I'm going to just unshare your your screen so that we can look at this book and how you've crafted this, which is so cool.
Yeah,
Which
thanks.
won me over.
Yeah, so the book really is the core of the entire program. Um, so when I created,
For years, and now I get to enjoy
I'm
the
going to
sun.
mute somebody. Hold on.
okay,
Okay, sorry about that. Looks like we're good.
okay, perfect. So when you open the book, it's spiral bound so that it can lay completely flat on a counter, or if you're in the middle of a facilitation, you can fold it in half and actually carry it around with you. But what's unique about this is that it's actually been designed with the four C's in mind. I'm going to open it to this page here. So you can see we've got C1, C2, C3, and C4 all in line. So it's the instructional design map, right? But in a linear position. I will give you the explanations of why each one of them is relevant. And I know you can't read that here, but trust me, it gives you the brief descriptions of why each one is important. Then, when you actually work through the book, behind every single one of these is 11 of the brain-based training techniques that you can use. And all you have to do is flip through the pages, and voila, you actually have a 4C instructional design map pre-built for you. If you don't like one of the techniques, cool, flip the page, boom, you have a brand new map. Um, what you get on the cards is the activity title, the instructions on how to facilitate it. On the flip side of the page, you get the timing estimate for how long it would take on average to facilitate the activity. If there's any setup requirements, I've listed that there. So let's say you need pen and paper for something to be set up ahead of time. I give you all of that information so you know, hey, I need to take 10 minutes to do this before I actually do this exercise. Um, and then if there is no setup requirement, I'll give you some tips and tricks on different ways that you could actually use the activity. One little bonus, the way that this was designed, you can actually flip, I don't know if you know this, Sue, you can actually flip through these pages by just running through them. If you're looking for something on a specific time box, like, oh, I need an activity that's 5 minutes, you just grab the book and go and flip right through it until you get to the one that you're looking for. In the
Love,
back of the book,
love
there are
it.
some wet erase pages so that you can actually do planning right inside the book. Or in the middle of a facilitation session, you could capture some notes. Hey, this landed really well. Or maybe this didn't, and this is what I want to change next time I do it. So lots of different ways to actually use this. And there are a couple pages inside this book of examples of how to, and some of them were ideas I've had in the beginning, and some of them are ideas users have said, hey, I do this with the book. Can you share this with people? And so whenever I get that kind of feedback, I try to incorporate it and share it with anybody that is using the tools.
And I love how you can have then like four different activities in the book that are all sort of open. You can see how they flow together and maybe you use two for connections or two for content, but having that as a tool is great. Now, take us to kind of the next step. The card deck, as I understand, has pretty similar content, if not the same, but is a different format. So talk me through your thinking about that, and let's, if you don't mind, look at a few of those cards as well.
Yeah,
Maybe look at the deck first, and then we can flip back to your screen share.
sure. Okay. So this is one of the decks. The Brain Building Blueprints original card deck is exactly the same training techniques that are in the book. The difference is how they're used or how they're played with. So your personal preference, okay? But they're now all individual little cards that you can actually carry around. So extremely portable. I can actually fit these in my back pocket, right? And many times I do. I'll sneak a couple extra ones in my back pocket. So if I have a few extra minutes during a facilitation session, because maybe audience was a little quieter than expected, or we got through something faster, boom, I just pull this out of my back pocket. But the difference here is that these are color coded. So the very same color coding system that you were seeing on the image I showed you earlier, all of the C1 activities are blue. All of the conclusion activities are green. And so it flows around, flows in alignment with that. On the cards, you will have the title and the instructions on one side. And then on the other side, you will have that timestamp, tips, materials, setup, etc. So all the same information, just a little bit different way to play with the tools.
So
Now,
can I just interrupt for 1 second, if you
yeah,
don't mind? What's also interesting about the whole toolkit is that you kind of cover it from designing a session, taking you through all the way to actually conducting it. So, whereas you might want to use the book as you're kind of thinking and designing and planning, you can then kind of leave that to the side and bring those cards with you and kind of have them in the order that you need to use them, which is, really nice to have that, the two phases of your training, planning and delivery so well meshed together.
yeah. The one bonus I will tell you about the cards is that because they're not attached to a binding, it might be blue for a C1 connection activity, but it'll work really well as a C4. And so you can actually rearrange these, right? They don't have to stay in the color-coded position. That's just a suggestion to help with the planning process and to make it easier.
Excellent. Uh, all right, so there's so many other pieces. I think we're at you want to share your screen again and show some of the other items that are part of the kit. And would it be helpful this is also on our website, for Angela to share one of the activities, or do we not need to spend time on that? I just want to be sensitive to time. Can you guys weigh in a little bit and let us know if that would be helpful or not?
Yes, I think it'd be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you just give an example of one or two cards then, Angie, please?
Sure. Well, we were doing one earlier at the beginning of the session called Stand Up If. So there's a series of prompts that were put into the chat, or you could say them verbally. Stand up if, and then whatever your prompt is. One of the prompts that we used in the chat is stand up if or react if you've spent many hours staying up late trying to create engaging training sessions, right? So that's one. Here, I'll just grab one here in my hand. This one's called Beat the Clock. So the beat the clock instructions have learners remain seated and simply shout out as many responses as they can before the pre-assigned time is up. Tell them that the type of response is needed, answers to the question, whatever you choose, so they're related to your topic, and then give them a time limit. So say 60 seconds. So here's the question, and then everybody has to respond, and they have to get as many out as they can within that 60-second time limit.
Yeah, so you may have activities for content that are like mix and match the material. So that a instead of lecturing, you're able to ask people to think through the material themselves. Maybe you have them like draw something. So it's using all of the emotion, physical, all of those brain science principles, and gives you some concrete activities for how you can deliver your material, practice, and conclude using these really interactive little bits, little activities. They're like, again, 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, there's discussion questions, experimental or techniques, experimental processes. Um, there are techniques in there where people are actually taking the time to teach each other something they learned or model something they learned, reflection techniques, all kinds of like a huge variety of options in there.
Here's one actually Nora had mentioned at the beginning where you just have people stand up, find a partner, and share. Or maybe you have people stand up, walk around the room, and share information to a board that may be presented in the back. If groups have each shared different parts of a learning module, and then you have them interact with what each group has presented. So, 52 cards are in the deck? Is that
There are
right?
50, yes, there are 52 cards in the deck, but some of those are the actual cards to give you the model itself. So
Okay.
there's 44 total techniques in the deck. So there's
And you have a
11 in.
second deck, right?
Yes. Yep, there is an expansion pack now that is available in the facilitation kit. So that's 44 more techniques, completely different from the ones that were in the original deck.
Okay. I think you have another slide or two, Angela, with a couple of other components of the full kit. Do you want to just kind of give us a quick talk through some of those?
Yeah. So included in the facilitation kit is actually a template. It's two-sided. It's larger. I think 17 by 13, 17 by 12. Completely wet erase so that you can actually reuse it over and over again. There are some custom sticky notes for the C1, 2, 3, 4. Those are also color coded so that you can actually use them on the template. I've set this up in this image so that you can actually see how to use this. So, what's your topic? Who's your audience? How long is your session going to be? And then you go through your cards and pick a few of them out that are like, oh, I really like this one. Let's do a fast pass. Nora, there you go. There's a fast pass right at the beginning. And then another activity for each of the sections. I've got another sample here for you to see. This one, and I'll share the reason I love these templates is because one, it's really helpful for me to be able to remember how to do this. It simplifies the process, so I'm not spending hours and hours trying to create scripts and run sheets to get started. And it allows me to visually see that my session is balanced, right? This one shows that I have a whole lot of stuff going on in my C4 and not as much in my other areas. So really easily I can see that I need to add some more activities someplace else or remove something from the green space. And then there's a couple of decals in there. You see this cute little light bulb, which is a brain and body break reminder. This session is 90 minutes. So I wanted to remind myself, hey, don't forget you have to, incorporate a break in here somewhere. And there's a couple of those in there and they do stick directly to that mat.
And the squares that you have actually, like where it says create future success stories, those indicate that this kit also includes sets of sticky notes for C1, C2, C3, C4,
Yep.
um, which I'm not sure we have an image of, but yeah, there they are.
Yep. And those are all color coded. So they match your cards, they match the template.
Right. And then there were a couple of other components we wanted to just let people know about, and then we're going to open to questions.
Yeah, so I created something called destination design. The training from the back of the room, and I know there's some people here who know all about training from the back of the room, it is very heavily weighted on the fact that we are paying very close attention to the learning outcome. What is the actionable behavior we actually want to get from our sessions, right? So I created this destination design to explore what the learning outcome is and how do I want to get there? What's motivating me? What roadblocks might I run into? And the beauty about destination design is that not only can I use it for myself as a facilitator, but I can give this to the students as a connection activity and let them use it to identify what their learning outcome is for their session personally. So you can use that in a multitude of ways.
And you
On the
have a
right,
notepad of these, right?
yes, yep,
Yep.
there is a 8.5, 5 by 8.5 notepad, like a glue pad where there's 50 sheets in there for you to reuse again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And then the safety cards, this is a deck of cards that serves a completely different purpose. This is about creating psychological safety during your actual training sessions. This deck of cards is going to include 10 sets of 5 of the safety cards. Elmo, enough, let's move on, pass, a ticket to pass or a right to be able to skip through an activity, questions, I need help, and appreciation for a comment or something being shared in the classroom. Just a really great way to allow people, even especially introverts, to feel like they can actually ask a question or interrupt without actually having to verbally do it.
Excellent. It's a lot, Angie. Oh my God. It's so much and it's so great.
Thanks, Sue. I appreciate that.
And I'm seeing some really positive reactions in our chat as well. I'm gonna unshare your screen for a second, because I think that was our last slide. And just open up to the gallery. Again, I want to invite people to turn on their videos, unmute, and ask some questions, either about how you might use this, different components of the tool. Yeah, Karen.
I am so proud of you, Angela.
Thanks,
I wanted
Karen.
to be here today just to support you. I'm so glad that you went this direction. And y'all, I've had the privilege of seeing this when it was in its infancy, its draft form, and I'm just so proud of you. I just wanted to jump on and tell you that.
So sweet. You have a fan.
Thank you.
Sure, you have many. Thank you.
I have a comment, Sue.
Yeah, please.
Angela, I love the balance piece. I think that's so key. So many of us tend to one section or the other, and having that visual view of where am I overloaded, where do I not have enough, and making sure that I have a balance of the full menu for the full brain. That's a brilliant piece, kiddo. That's a really brilliant piece. I love that piece.
I love that. Thanks for that feedback, Nora. I appreciate it.
Do you find that doing this kind of shortens or lengthens your instructional design process?
Absolutely shortens it. I I was sharing with you guys earlier, I literally would spend hours like digging through trying to find variety of different training techniques to use. And now I just have these cards, sitting on my desk and I can whip through them and grab one by color and let that just fill the space and go from there. And then once it's done, if I want to tweak it, I can spend time tweaking it rather than spending time trying to build it.
Yeah, awesome. Sheila, no, o Otilia, forgive me if I've misspoken your name. Yes, we do ship to the UK. Uh, we have this thing going on in the US where there may be some really high tariffs. I'm not sure how that's going to affect things. We're all trying to figure out what's what. So, but yes, we do ship internationally. Jamie, you have a raised hand, please.
Hi there. Thanks everyone. Thanks Angie for that great show and share. I will say that I'm also a fan of Angie's work and I have taken her I've been a student of her training from the back of the room class, virtual edition. And so I got to see a lot of these brain building blueprints firsthand in play in her workshops. I've also taken coaching training from Angie where she's also used these brain building blueprints. And I myself have a copy of my own copy of the brain building blueprints, and I have used them in my training sessions and workshops that I've done. And it's so super helpful just to have it all laid out, and the fact that you can sort of just choose between different ones and have different combinations and not have to like they're not all on one page. So I really like that it's split into the 4 C's, and so that you can mix and match between those different 4 C's. And so that's really helpful. And what I also found is even if you don't want to use them straight as like all of her activities in the C1 could potentially be activities for any of the other C's as well. And so you can really even go beyond just mixing and matching 4 C's, but you can even, if you think of the activities as being interchangeable even amongst the 4Cs, you really have even more options of mixing and matching. So there's all kinds of uses for it, especially and the cards are great too for that example where you want to use maybe one of the ones that were labeled C1 in a C3 or C2 or C4 activity. They can be modified to fit any of those 4Cs, in my opinion. A lot of them can.
Thank
So
you,
it's
Jane.
great stuff. And I've used the book for probably the last year. I've been using year or more, probably a little more than a year.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you also brought up the question, Jamie, of virtual training. And I too, when I went through the training from the back of the room course, it was a virtual version.
Mm-hmm.
So, Angie, do you want to talk to us a little bit about how this translates from in-person to online experiences? Because I feel like we have a lot of folks in our community here who, have some mix of in-person and online.
Yeah. So this works in both worlds. I think that the 4Cs and these instructional design tools are perfect for the virtual environment. Many of the activities that are actually in both the original deck or the book and the expansion pack can easily be converted to virtual space. There will be a few, like there's one which is Snowball Fight, where people are writing things down on a piece of paper and then throwing them across the room, and then people pick up the papers. Obviously, they can't pick up the paper in the virtual space, but you could create something like that on a virtual whiteboard. So some of those things might take just a tiny bit of creativity or thought, but they can very easily be translated. And I am working on the virtual edition of these tools, so I will give you some virtual edition scripts in the future.
And do you typically use Miro, just Zoom whiteboard? Are there tools that you feel make it easier, more difficult to kind of create these activities on the board?
Absolutely. I am a lover of Miro and Mural. So Mural and Miro. I am not a fan, no offense to Zoom, of Zoom Whiteboard or some of the other whiteboard tools. I just don't feel like they have the same interactive capabilities that Miro and Mural do. And they're just so wonderful at being able to give the students space to play.
Hmm. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions that people have as you think about using this in your own jobs, in your own work? Any more tips that you'd like to get from Angie? I know we're at our half-hour mark. I try to respect that. Sometimes we go over. Feel free to unmute yourselves. All right. Well,
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it sounds brilliant, and I have the feeling that actually, from what I could see, I've been using this already in most of my own training. But just from being here, I've come up with several new ideas of, oh, we can do that and I can do that. And yeah, it would be great. I've been checking to see if I can get the stuff here in the UK, but obviously it doesn't seem to be available. So we have to see, yeah, for tariffs and so forth. But yeah, I'd love to learn more. So thank you, Angela. I think you've done a brilliant job.
You're very welcome. Thank you for that.
All right. Well, let me formally say thank you to everyone. This has been a great half hour, so instructive and such a wonderful tool. Thank you, Angie, for sharing this with us.